Hey guys, welcome back to more ProRevenge stories. In this Ripe Stories video, imagine a boss so greedy he forces you to work with no heat in freezing cold weather and then refuses to pay you for 3 weeks of hard labor. He thought he could misclassify me as a contractor to save a buck and avoid taxes, but that was the biggest mistake he could have ever done. Let's dive right into the video. And the first one is titled, "Boss would not pay me the money I earned, so I had his company shut down," and other screw you moments. So last year, I started working for a local plumbing company that seemed promising. They would pay top dollar to employees for good old-fashioned labor, so I signed my W-2 and went on my way. Seems legit, right? Well, I started out making an hourly wage, was given my own work van, and was offered a work cell phone. However, if you used your personal cell phone, the owner of the company would pay your bill because you're using your own phone. How neat is that, right? Well, fast forward a month or two, I was forced to make commission-based off of every job and I didn't have a say in this. But 20% of every job you go to? Hell, that's a lot of money in plumbing. So I was none the wiser, but eventually I found out that my paychecks were not having any taxes taken out of them, so I asked my boss, why am I not having any taxes taken out of my check? To which he replied, "When we switched you to commission, you're a subcontractor now. You're a 1099. You're gonna be making so much bank now, bro." Did not sign a 1099 form, but okay. As the time went on, I started working 90-hour weeks with no break. If my phone was turned off and the office folk tried to reach me and couldn't, they would take money out of my paycheck. The phone bill? Never got paid. There would be days where I would not make a single dime because the boss would mess something up in our system. Also, we had no heat in our vans, and when it got to -14 outside, his words to us were, "Go buy a damn blanket. I cannot afford repairs like this right now," while he is in Florida on a cruise with his whole damn family. So like anyone else, I just up and quit. Screw that. When I left, I asked for my checks. I was owed 3 of them for the weeks I worked, but my boss was not ready to give them up yet. "You effed me over, and now I'm gonna have you over," he said when I asked why he wasn't gonna pay me. I offered multiple times for him to just meet me so this wouldn't have to go any further, but he refused. I took to r/legal advice on Reddit and asked what I should do. The responses led me to LARA, Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs, to file a wage claim to get my money. But on top of that, I filed a report with them stating the company doesn't pull permits, which they are required to do, when replacing people's plumbing, so they sent over an investigator to check these claims out. I then went to the IRS to find out about this whole tax ordeal. I then filed the proper paperwork to have the IRS check and see if I was misclassified as a 1099 employee when I should have been a W-2 employee since they were not taking taxes out. Well, sure as hell, I was wrongfully not getting taxes taken out of my checks, so the IRS sent an investigator of their own. Now, at this point, I see on my phone that I still have their email address linked to my Google account, so I do some snooping. It turns out they have not paid city taxes in over 6 years and that the office manager, a woman who has verbally abused me time and time again, collects disability through the state but still collects a $1,500 paycheck from the company every week. You can bet your ass I sent that in with the IRS. Screenshots included in my email, that is how it all unfolded. I have a friend that still works, or rather worked for them at the time, and he told me about the investigators coming in there. Lara fined them upwards of $50,000 for failing to produce the proper permits for work that was performed, and they also paid me what the company owed me with interest since I waited over a month for those checks. On top of all of this, the IRS made them pay for my taxes at the end of the year, took away the office manager's disability, audited them because they haven't paid city taxes, and fined them for each employee they did this to. At this time as well, all of his fleet vans broke due to wear and tear. This resulted in the company closing. When he asked me why I did all of this, my response was simply, "You screwed me over, so I will screw you over too." Edit, I did sign a W-2, but they never gave me any tax forms at the end of the year and told me to fill out a 1099 instead of giving me my W-2. Edit number 2, I'm not the best with tax form names. I signed one when I first started that stated I would be receiving a W-2 at the end of the year. Sorry for the confusion. And don't turn off the video just yet, the next one is a kind of controversial nuclear grandma revenge story. Please let me know at the end of this story what you think about it and whether you're on the side of the grandma or not. So for some background, this happened when I was younger, around 11 or 12, but I learned about all of it only a couple months ago. My mom had just finished makeup school, yes that's a thing, and opened a small home business in addition to her regular job. The business involved giving clients manicure, pedicure, waxing and hairstyling, so we lived in a small town around 5,000 people, but on to the story. It was like 3 months after my mom first opened her business. Business was going well and she had pretty pleasant clients up until then. Anyway, this woman, let's call her CB, short for Crazy BITCH, was someone my family knew for a long time already. Not that they were particularly close with her, but they did know her husband. One day, she scheduled an appointment with my mom for her daughter. There was a party or something, who was my ex-classmate. So she came over and my mom did her nails and her hair and she was very satisfied with it. No complaints, just compliments, and the procedure was around 300 shekels and CB paid. Fast forward to the next day, CB calls my mom furious and demands she gives her back her money since the hair and nails fell apart and ruined her daughter's evening, which was a lie by the way, since there were a bunch of photos on Facebook for that event that showed CB's daughter with everything intact. My mom decided not to argue with her and just give her the money back. When she met up with CB to give her the money, CB went something like, "I'm gonna sue you for damage to my daughter's morale. You'll be paying me for a very long time." Money was tough back then and my mom knew that hiring a lawyer was not a possibility, so she broke down. She went to cry to my grandma. Now, my grandma is known for being very hardcore. She's the type of woman who would yell at her own mother, who treated her like crap when she was younger. When my mom cried to my grandma, obviously, my grandma was having none of it. She went like, "No one dares to touch my offspring. I will kill that BITCH," in Russian. And here comes the revenge. Before the actual revenge though, my grandmother decided to do what any responsible adult would do. She yelled at CB, called her all the bad names in the dictionary, and demanded she returns the money to my mom. CB of course refused, and that is where crap went loose. First, she let everybody know what kind of person CB was, and she was like, she cheated out a single mother with 2 kids out of money and caused her a lot of emotional distress. Since my grandma had a high standing status in the community, everybody sided with her and would give CB death stares when she passed by, going as far as calling her a BITCH and stuff when she passed by. CB found out my grandma is the one responsible for that and went to confront her. My grandma went like, "Give my daughter her money back," and she refused to pay up. My grandma then proceeded to yell at her and call her names again. CB sent her husband to talk to my grandma, but once again, my grandma went like, "Give my daughter her money back." Her husband is kind of a chicken, so he quickly backed down, and that night my grandma also trespassed into their backyard and ruined all their crops. She made sure everything was ruined down to the last lemon tree. After ruining her status in the community and CB still refusing to pay up, my grandma was very furious. She wanted to cause even more crap, and one day, she found the perfect opportunity. She went to the local deli and saw CB working there, which was perfect, and now even though my grandma is hardcore, she knows how to suck up to people and sweet-talk them, which is why she has a high-standing status in the community. After my grandma saw CB, she went straight to her boss. She came up with some stuff about how CB has cancer and she is touching the food and she will spread it to other people. I know it's BS, but still, and for your information, she actually didn't have cancer, and that until CB was fired, she along with other regular customers would stop shopping there. CB was quickly fired after that. Next up, my grandma went to a regular spa where she knew a lot of people and saw CB working there, working as a receptionist now. She went to her boss again and complained how CB has cancer and stuff like that and demanded she's fired. CB was fired once again. The same pattern continued on and on. First it was a local clothing store, then it was a pet store, gas station and another type of store. Her latest job is a job at the gallery. When she saw my grandma approaching the store, she ran to the door to open it to my grandma, who was bowing, and said as politely as she could, "Welcome grandma, how are you doing today?" My grandma is currently planning how to get her fired from this one too. I don't know any news that happened for the last couple months, but I do know this. Whenever she sees CB on the street, she makes sure to call her all the bad words in the book up until this day. And by the way guys, just for your information, this story is super old and was posted a long time ago. Maybe that's why people were so stupid about the whole cancer thing. These people seem really misinformed. Anyway, also let me know whether you think the grandma was the a-hole in the story or not, and please don't forget to like the video because that would help me tremendously. Either way, the next one is a fantastic malicious compliance story which is titled "You want these ads done 3 months in advance? No problem, boss." Long-time lurker, but I finally have something to share that happened within the last few months. So I work as a senior graphic designer for a company for 5 years now. Originally, it was only a team of 3, a marketing manager, a marketing executive, and myself. The former 2 have since quit, and you will find out later why. A huge part of my job is to handle a huge advertising schedule in a project management system, PMS, for which I design print and digital ads for. Enter my difficult micromanaging manager. He's the VP of Sales and Marketing who has been with the company for 30+ years. His way of quality control is to force all our marketing materials to go through a so-called approval process in our PMS, in which everyone else has to give their feedback, and only then will my manager give the final sign-off once it reaches him. On top of that, he insists on being copied on every notification for every single step of the way. So, every single ad I produced had to be sent through our PMS while tagging the product managers and proofreaders. Those individuals would then comment feedback for changes needed, or if the ad is approved, they would mark it complete and then send it along to the next person. It would end with this micromanaging manager who would have the final say on whether it's good to be sent out or not. Sometimes the process would be flawless, as everyone would approve it the first time with no changes needed. But when it got to my manager, he would reject it and I would have to do it over pending his remarks. The thing with our PMS is that you can see timestamps of when people viewed updates and on our project board, so he gets all the updates and he could have easily interceded earlier and let me know if changes were needed to pass his checks, so I would not waste my time. But because of the way he is, he only wants to see the final drafts after everyone else sees them. Everyone else always seems to move things along in a timely fashion, but when it finally gets to my manager, he would just let it sit and then you would have to constantly check to see if he marked it off. When I pushed back and stated how arduous this all is, his tone-deaf reply was to have it done 3 months in advance. He also insisted that the ads I produced have to look different each time for each publication's insertion order. So after 4 years of handling all this by myself, I was barely meeting deadlines and the quality of my work started slipping as I was making really stupid mistakes. Every few months I would ask my manager if we were gonna hire an additional designer for our department since we are doing more marketing, and every year I would hear, "It's not in our budget right now." Things came to a head during one of my biannual reviews where I told my manager bluntly, in front of HR, that we desperately needed to hire an additional designer. As there was just no way for me to hit the 3-month ahead goal that he keeps parroting, he actually asked me, and I quote, "Is it typical for companies to have more than one graphic designer?" I'm dead serious. I showed how I handled everything by myself as best I could at that point, and I was getting burned out. For those that may ask why I stay, they compensate me very well without having to commute into a major metropolitan city, a golden handcuff situation if you will. By the end of the meeting, my manager finally caved in and gave me permission to hire an additional designer who started with us this past January. While showing him the ropes on our design systems, he told me the manager said something snarky to him along the lines of, "I never imagined having to hire 2 designers. You guys should have no problem being 3 months ahead on ads now." Are you kidding me? Over the years I watched my manager as he hired a plethora of account executives and replacements for our department, most of whom quit within months under his watch, but he's gonna give me crap for needing 1 designer after I made things work for 4 years by myself? I was so infuriated by his comments that I decided he wants ads done 3 months in advance? Okay, betcha. I then trained the new designer on our approach to the advertising schedule in the PMS and the ins and outs of the approval process, and we went to work. We both proceeded to bury my manager in notifications as we churned out ad after ad after ad, pushing items through the pipeline, with my manager receiving notifications on every single update. When the tasks ended at him and we got no response, we set up automations to ping him every hour, calling for his approval. We also would send detailed weekly reports stating our progress and also made it inherently clear to mention our goal was to be 3 months ahead of deadlines. By this past May, in time for one of my biannual reviews, my manager made an announcement. He announced my coworker, the marketing assistant, would be promoted to the vacant marketing manager position. Furthermore, they would now be handling the advertising schedule and be the final point person going forward. My manager also asked to have all notifications for him be removed as he did not have the bandwidth anymore to monitor it and is taking a step back from overseeing us. So yes, we collectively broke my manager after only 5 months of doing exactly what he asked, and I've gotta say things have improved greatly so far. Our new marketing manager is very laid back, as we are still getting things done ahead of schedule, and he is really good at what he does. We have also hired 2 more additional employees for our department, and we've been steadily growing. My newly promoted coworker recently joked with me and the junior designer about how he wanted to go over the advertising schedule for next year with our manager, but he elected to not see anything and fully trusted my coworker to handle it completely on his own. Funny how that works. And hold up, Ripe Stars, don't go anywhere yet. This next story is wild. A small town cop goes full on jerk, picks a fight with the wrong guy, and it backfires spectacularly. It is titled Revenge on Awful Cop. And by the way, if you enjoy the cop stories, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much. So, some background: my wife inherited some property and convinced me to move there after getting an amazing job offer in her field, which is wildlife conservation. The salary matched our combined income, plus she got a management position with great benefits and an employment contract, and since we don't have kids and I'm pretty flexible, I agreed. We sold our house and moved sight unseen. Coming from my background in security consulting and tactical training, I was in for a culture shock. We are talking genuine horse and buggy territory. The house needed serious work, no indoor plumbing, just an outhouse and a hand pump. We then bought a used trailer to live in while I renovated. Being 6+ inches taller than everyone else and pale as a ghost, I stuck out like a sore thumb but eventually made friends. My wife, having spent summers there with relatives, fit right in. The area itself was great, but the surrounding counties had a growing drug problem. Break-ins, carjackings, and even kidnappings started creeping in. After a horrible incident where some seniors were killed for their medications and jewelry, I saw an opportunity to help. I bought some cheap land, contaminated soil too remote for development, and built a security training facility. I started offering advanced guard training, home defense courses, firearm certification, and security consulting. Eventually, it became the go-to trainer for police recertifications in our region. This saved them from sending officers 6 hours away for training. Most local officers are good people who understand the community. They know the history here. Corrupt cops don't last long. In the past though, the community took justice into their own hands when the system failed them. Even a former judge who got off easy after hurting kids disappeared mysteriously. The good officers make sure that newcomers understand they are here to protect people, not bully them. Now, for the story, I was covering a night shift for one of my guards when some officers stopped by to chat. They told me about this new transfer from the city who was causing problems already. Real power trip type who thought his badge made him above everyone else. He was writing tickets for ridiculous things like driving with one hand, a burned out fog light, even tried giving a DUI to someone working on their car, on blocks, in their own driveway. The other officers were worried that he would destroy the trust they had built with the community, and 2 weeks later, I met Officer Jerk myself. I usually wave at patrol cars since most officers recognize my vehicle. This guy slammed his brakes, flipped around, and came flying up behind me with lights and sirens. After I mentioned my concealed carry permit, required by law, he kept his hand on his gun the whole time while lecturing me about how 99% of people probably cannot even use one properly. Wrote me a ticket for a reckless operation because I took my hand off the wheel to wave. When I tried explaining that I was just being friendly, he lost it, got in my face, threatening to haul my smart ass self downtown, and saying that he could cost me more in impound fees than I would make in a month. I handed him my lawyer's card and told him any further contact needs to go through her. He called me a coward and told me to get lost. I was furious. As someone who's trained for years to control my emotions in high-stress situations, the fact that this guy got under my skin so quickly was concerning. He was not particularly imposing, and his aggressive behavior with his hand on his weapon showed his insecurity. I worried what might happen if he treated someone without my training this way though. First, I went to court with my dashcam footage and got the citation dismissed. Then I took the evidence to his sheriff and had a long talk. The sheriff agreed that this guy was trouble, but explained that his hands were tied, the union would fight any serious discipline, and he would probably just get some training that he would just ignore. He even warned me against filing a complaint, worried the guy might retaliate. However, then fate handed me a golden opportunity. Guess who showed up at my facility for recertification? He swaggered in like he owned the place, complaining about how this was bureaucratic nonsense and a waste of time. The moment of recognition when I reminded him of our last meeting was priceless. He tried to brush it off as going by the book and claimed that he only acted that way because me carrying a weapon made him nervous and he needed to assert his authority. Well, before his test, he asked to use my range for practice. I waived the fee just to watch. At 10 yards, he fired 17 rounds rapid fire and only hit the target 5 times with just 1 in center mass. His best score was at 5 yards to 10 hits with 4 center mass. When I offered advice, he told me he had forgotten more than I'd ever know. Then he shot 1 at a time at 10 yards and could not hit center mass once. After seeing a 13-year-old girl drilling headshots at 15 yards, he mumbled something about needing his sights adjusted and left. Well, our certification standards are tough. Beyond state minimums, you have to complete 3 tests in full gear, a timed shooting drill with reload at 10 yards, a one-handed version, and a precision drill. Most officers find it challenging under pressure, so I'm usually lenient with scoring if they are close and seem like decent people who are just nervous or rusty. Well, not this time. I bought new digital calipers to measure his shot placement. If he was off by even a fraction, it would count as a miss. I was going by the book, just like he liked to do. Test day arrives and this genius shows up in shorts and a workout shirt. No vest, no duty gear, not even an eye or ear protection, just his gun and an empty belt. When I pointed this out, he says, "I brought everything that's important. Let's get this over with." I could have failed him right then and there for not following protocol, but I wanted him to fail on his own merits. I loaned him some safety gear and let him proceed. What happened next was both sad and hilarious. During the first test, he tripped and face-planted running to position. Then while drawing his weapon, he caught it on his holster and sent it flying through the dirt. After that automatic fail, I gave him another chance, wanting solid proof of his incompetence. He kept his gun this time, but could not clear the malfunction fast enough and barely hit the target. When I told him he failed, he exploded, started throwing accusations about the ticket incident and punching my wall, pointing at me and my staff while saying, "I will make sure you all regret this." My regulars and staff were watching through the window by now, and when I asked if that was a threat, this genius said, "You bet you're behind it is," and tried to shove me. I then sidestepped and told him to leave my property and informed him that he had just guaranteed that he would never work as an officer again. That is when he spat at me and threw a punch. Being about 50 pounds heavier, I caught his arm and introduced him to the floor really hard. As I held him down, he started crying when he saw my rangemaster, a 6'6", 310 pounds retired Marine, pointing our bright green training shotgun at his head while calling his boss. Well, it turns out my rangemaster brought the less lethal weapon because he had never seen me that angry before. He told me later, "Boss, in my experience, when a quiet man like you gets that mad, even the devil would run away." He was actually planning to shoot me with a beanbag round if needed. I gave him a raise for being willing to protect others, even from his own boss. Officer Jerk got arrested right there by his own boss. Despite the evidence, he got a decent plea deal, but he'll never be an officer or own firearms again. His wife left him during the court proceedings. It turns out he was abusive at home too, and last I heard he's now working at a gas station up north making minimum wage. Looking back, I'm glad I could help make our community safer. Sometimes the best revenge is just letting someone fail on their own terms, especially when they've got such a talent for it. And the next one is an amazing petty revenge story. This one is titled, "Got My Lazy Colleague Fired." So I was an admin assistant supporting 5 professionals and I was swamped with work. Time was running out, so I handed some of it to lazy Susie, who only supported 3 people and had nothing to do. 2 days before deadline, she dumped it back on my desk, saying she had been too busy to get around to it. I knew this was not true, because her department had nothing on at the time. For me, this was the last straw. I wanted to get her fired. I went around to the 3 executives she supported and said, "I'm doing a review of admin workflow. What admin tasks do you have outstanding?" "None right now," was the answer. This was not unusual though. Theirs was an EBB and flow kind of unit, swamped one week, twiddling your thumbs the next, but our unit was busy most of the time. I worked overtime to get it done. I'd previously spoken with my manager about being overloaded, so I went to her office and used that info about no assignments in the pipeline in that other unit to make the case for revising the admin workflow. At the Monday morning staff meeting, our manager asked why I'd had to use overtime to get the work done, and I said, "Ask Susie. That work had been on her desk." Then she brought it back to me. Susie said, "Because I'd been too busy." perfect. She had trapped herself in a lie. My manager said, "May I ask, doing what for who? Because as far as I know, you were completely available. Did any of you have tasks assigned to Susie last week?" They all looked at each other, and see, none of her 3 people knew that the others had also not tasked her with any assignments. Susie blushed crimson red and stared at her shoes. She had just gotten caught lying to our boss in front of all of us. It was excruciating. Everybody winced. I knew that lazy Susie not helping out when she had nothing to do would piss off our manager to no end. Interviews for Susie's replacement began the next week, and she was gone by the end of the month. And yeah guys, thanks for watching. I will see you again tomorrow.